Hey, and welcome to the very first video in this educational module series. We're going to be covering what exactly AI is and how you might be able to use it in this upcoming college application cycle for your own application. Now, we're not just going to be taking a look at the ethical considerations of what universities allow, which is something we will be looking at, but on top of that, we're also going to look at what are AI's strengths and weaknesses. What can it do well and what can't it do at all? And so that's going to help you understand how you might want to use it this coming season for your own applications within the bounds of reason. So within what universities allow you to do. Great. So before we kick this off, I actually want to step back for a second and give you a good understanding, a good mental model of what the college admissions process looks like from the admissions officer's perspective. And so as a heads up, I was an admissions coach for a little over half a decade by now, and I coached a lot of students who did very well. Almost all of them got into the universities that they wanted to, and this was the mental model that I would give them to think about college admissions. On top of that, I've also vetted this with several admissions officers at top universities, so this is a fairly good mental model to think about of how the admissions process works. Now, I want you to think about it like a three-step process. It is a funnel that leads into a sieve that drops into a basket, and your application starts at the top, up here. If you get all the way down to the basket, then congratulations, you're accepted. So the question is, how do you get to the basket? Well, that is a great question. Now, let's start with the funnel. That's the very first step in the process. And what the funnel does is it's really admissions officers looking at you, your application, to get a good understanding of how academically rigorous you are. And they're going to understand what types of academic rigor you can and can't handle by looking at three key pieces of your application. The first is the rigor of classwork that you chose to select relative to what your high school offers. The second is the grades that you got in those classes. And the third are going to be your standardized test scores. Now, there are virtually no cutoffs when it comes to applying to college. No university is going to sit there and be like, you don't have a 1450, not good enough for us. That doesn't happen. What does happen, though, is admissions officers will try to get a good composite understanding of what type of academic rigor you can handle and get a good understanding of whether or not you would be able to succeed at the classes at that university. Now, the good news is once you're through the funnel, once they say, fantastic, AJ, or which is my name, or whoever is good enough to make it kind of pass to the next step, then none of that matters. So it doesn't matter if you took 8 APs or 10 APs, or your SAT was 1450 or 1490. All of that doesn't matter once you get that first initial process. So once you can demonstrate academic rigor, you're on to the next step. Now, the next step is called the sieve. And the reason I call it the sieve is because you can imagine an admissions officer taking kind of applications that have gotten through the funnel, so they're good enough, they're academically rigorous enough, and they're kind of shaking it, waiting for these grains of sand of interesting isn't quite the right word, but applications that have demonstrated that they are the right fit for this university, that they will contribute to campus and really be an amazing addition, and they fit well with the resources that the university has to offer. And so that's kind of what the admissions officer is sitting there doing, reading applications and figuring out who is the right fit for this university. And it's almost like they're shaking the sieve, waiting for these grains of sand, which are applicants and applications, to fall out. And eventually they fall into the basket, which then, fantastic, you are accepted. Now, how do they make these decisions? How are they figuring out who the applicants are that pass through this sieve? Well, I have this in a red box here because this is by far the toughest part of the process, and it's really where you want to be focusing your energy. Now, most of it is going to come from your essays. Your letters of recommendation will also play a factor, but really the crown jewel of your application is your essays. So that's your personal statement plus whatever essays you had to specifically write for this university. And the university is going to look at this and get a good understanding of who you are and how you might contribute to campus. And so that's why on the left side of this slide, I have essays make or break your application, because this is the toughest part. A lot of applicants are going to be academically rigorous enough, and a lot of students, honestly, overemphasize the funnel part of the process. They think I need to take those extra 2 or 3 AP classes because I'm not going to be competitive enough for this school unless I get that done. And a lot of parents and students put a lot of stress on themselves trying to over-index on this funnel. Don't worry about it. So long as you prove that, generally speaking, you are academically rigorous enough, you don't need to over-stress yourself out taking 10 clubs and 3 leadership positions and all these different things. Do what you like, but really the most important part is make sure that your authentic self is coming out in the sieve, in the essays that you're writing. Because if you succeed there, that is what's going to really make or break your application. So take a big, deep breath, a sigh of relief. You don't need to do so many APs and so many clubs and all these different things and really, really stretch yourself thin, because really the make or break part of your application is going to come down to your essays and how you're able to show the admissions officer that you really are the right fit for that specific university and who you are. So That's about the close of this framework, but I think you have a really, really good mental model and an understanding of what this process looks like. So let's move on to the next step.